All right, this is a presentation on CEEC paragraphs, the basics. This is meant to be an introduction to how to write a paragraph, which I'm sure many of you already know how to write a paragraph, but what I'm going to be focusing on is this CEEC part, which is a formula that I've developed to help people who maybe struggle with what are those parts of a paragraph? How do I put them together so that I write a really good paragraph? So even if you know how to write a paragraph, I'd like you to be aware of what I expect and what each of these letters represents for my class. Are required, so you should know from class that I will be checking to make sure that they are in your Cornell Notes section of your notebook soon, probably tomorrow. So a couple of objectives today, actually 3 of them. You can see I'm using Yoda again because he's my favorite. Here he is writing, I assume. And our objectives are, 1, for you to be able to identify the 4 integral parts of any informative paragraph. So what does the C and then the 2 E's and then the final C stand for? You should be able to do that. You should also be able to understand how the 4 integral parts of an informative paragraph work. So how does each of those 4, not just what are those 4 parts, but how are they working and how do they work together? And then finally, you should be able to identify and or apply the 4 integral parts of an informative paragraph within your own writing. So not only, some of you may say, oh, I know, I do those 4 things already, and you should just be able to find them in your writing. Others of you might say, oh, I didn't know I need to do that. And in that case, you will start trying to do them in your own writing. Just a special note before we begin, some of you may find that this is a little simplified. Others of you may find that it's not. Just so you know, these parts are required. They're needed for any paragraph. The thing is, those of you a little bit further along in your understanding of writing may find that you can do them more creatively. So the more experience you get, the less formulaic it gets, the more creative you can be in how you apply these 4 parts. But if you're just starting out, following the formula is actually a good idea. So the basic formula is just including these 4 parts, and all informative paragraphs need these 4 parts. The first part is the first C, which is the claim. Every paragraph should have some kind of claim. The second part is the evidence. All paragraphs need at least one piece of evidence. And along with that evidence, you'll need elaboration or explanation, which is the third part of a paragraph. And then the final part of a paragraph is your connection or your conclusion. Sometimes it's a connection because you're moving on to another paragraph. Other times it's a conclusion because you're wrapping things up. And I've color-coded these. You'll see the color codes throughout the rest of this slideshow. One note before we go on, this part, the EE part, I usually say CEEC, but it could be that you have CEE, EE, EEC, because lots of times in a paragraph you have multiple pieces of evidence, and for each piece of evidence you elaborate or explain on that piece of evidence. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to say CEEC. So I'm going to go through each part real quickly just to tell you what the parts include. The first part, the claim, establishes the purpose of the paragraph. It tells us what the paragraph is going to do or what the paragraph is going to be about. So if you have a prompt, then your claim is the response or your response to the prompt. It's just, here's what the prompt is asking you to do. Here's how you're responding to it. If you're answering a question, then your claim is the answer to the question. It's not, you're not dancing around the question. The claim just gets right down to it. And if you're just giving information, like if you're just writing a paragraph because you want to get information across, then your claim clarifies the topic and what you're going to be saying about the topic of the paragraph. So it tells us what's the paragraph about, and more importantly, what kind of, what are you going to prove about that topic. Second part is the evidence. And evidence, I know, hopefully you all know what evidence is, but I'm going to say a little bit more about it here. So evidence directly supports the claim. You have to make sure that you have evidence that is directly leading us to a deeper understanding of whatever your claim is. So we can never take a claim at face value. It's not enough to just say, this is the answer to the question, or this is what you should believe. You have to give us reasons to believe it, and the evidence allows us that reason to believe it. You need to make sure that your evidence comes from a credible source. So you can't just go to John Doe's website and pull some random quote out of a website and say, hey, this is what John Doe said, so this is what I'm going to say. You have to make sure that whoever you're getting your evidence from is credible, believable. And evidence also offers us specific information. So it's never broad. It always gives us a really clear picture of what we're looking at or what we're meant to be understanding. So things like numbers, facts, specific examples, and specific first-hand accounts all count as specific information because those give us, a clear picture of whatever it is that you're proving. So strong evidence will be quoted often directly from your source. Remember that your source is credible. So if you're quoting it directly from your source, it's coming directly from them, we have less of a reason to disbelieve it. Strong evidence will also include specific facts or figures. So facts being, again, those specific examples or first-hand accounts or anecdotes in some cases, unless we're writing some kind of scientific paper. The third part of any paragraph is the elaboration or the explanation part. And what a lot of people do, they'll give a claim, they'll give evidence, and then they'll just assume that that's enough. But what we need is your own elaboration or explanation on that evidence. So elaboration explores how evidence supports the claim. You can't assume that your reader knows why the evidence is supporting your claim. You have to spell it out for them. So it's that how that's really important. It goes beyond what the evidence is already telling us. It interprets the evidence for the reader in a way that the reader can see the connection to the claim. So what you can't do is you can't restate the evidence. You can't just say, as you can see, the evidence said blah, 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 because we've already read the evidence. We already know what the evidence say. Again, you need to go back to, well, how does this evidence now elaborate on the claim? So you're interpreting the evidence for the reader. And this is really hard for people. A lot of times well, how do I elaborate on it? I don't know how to elaborate on it. It's definitely a skill that you have to gain. So if you can't think of what to say, start yourself off with just this simple sentence and fill in the blanks. So the sentence says, this evidence supports the claim that blank because blank. So in this first blank here, you're just kind of reminding us of the claim. And then, so, oh, right, this is what we're proving. And the because is your reason for why the evidence supports the claim, all right? So try that. Now, you don't have to use this sentence, but it might help some of you, so you can feel free to use that. Final part of any paragraph is the connection or the conclusion. Sometimes you do both things. Sometimes you're wrapping up a paragraph, but you're also connecting to another paragraph. So here's how you'll do that. Connections help the readers see the relation to other ideas. So, we're also talking about this, or maybe you heard another idea in another class or earlier in a class, or you heard an idea in the news and you see a connection between what you just proved and that thing that you heard. So you're drawing those connections for the readers. So like I said, they can be from class, they can be from life, they can be from previous paragraphs or future paragraphs. In some cases, you might want to be drawing a connection to an idea that's coming up. So, and that's my next bullet point, future paragraphs. Conclusions, on the other hand, offer readers the chance to see the big picture. So, okay, now that I know this, now that you've proved this thing to me, here's why it's important for you to know this thing. So readers often want to know what to do with this information. Well, the conclusion is your chance to tell the reader what to do with the information. Sometimes you will do both of these things separately, or maybe you'll do one or the other. You might connect, you might conclude. Other times, and especially if you're a more advanced writer, you might combine the connections and the conclusions at the same time. What you never want to do, however, is you never want to repeat what's already been said. Don't repeat your claim, don't repeat your evidence, don't repeat your explanation. We just read it. Move us beyond that. Tell us something now that we can do with the information. Make it relevant to us. So never, never repeat what has already been said. All right? Let's look at quick examples and then we'll be done. This will just take a couple minutes. So I'm going to show you a basic example first. I want you to imagine that you're going out. Maybe you've got something going on Friday night. You've got a normal curfew, but this whatever you're doing on Friday night is going to require you, or you really want to be out later than that curfew. And you've got to prove to your parents that you deserve to be out later than your curfew. So if that's the case, here's a simple paragraph that you could write or say to your parents to hopefully convince them that's what should be allowed. So it says, and then you'll see the color coding also. In green, we've got the claim, I think I should be allowed to stay out 1 hour past curfew this Friday night, which establishes what you're trying to prove. In purple, we have the evidence. It says, I have always been home on time in the past. Now, probably could be more specific, but it's a good start. In blue, we have the the elaboration or the explanation. So it says, since I have always been responsible before, I deserve to show that I can handle more responsibility. So you can see the connection between the evidence. So, always been responsible before is connecting to what's in the purple. You're saying what you did in the past. And then finally, the connection or the conclusion says, if you give me this opportunity, I will not disappoint you. So it's not just, repeating, it's saying, okay, and this is why it's important in the future. If we were to advance it, and I apologize for the red marks on this slide, let's just ignore them. If you were to advance that paragraph, you can see that we expand quite a bit on all 4 of those parts. So in the green, we've got a new claim, or it's basically the same claim, but definitely more specific. It says, this Friday night, my best friend and I really want to go see the premiere of the new Marvel movie, but it won't be over until an hour or so after my regular curfew. However, I think that it would be appropriate for you to let me stay out a bit longer for this special occasion. So you're setting them up a little bit more. You're giving them a little bit more reason to pay attention to that second sentence of the claim, which is really kind of driving home the point that you're going to try to make. You move on to the evidence, which says, as you know, I have never asked for this kind of special treatment before. I've always been home at or before my curfew, even when it meant I had to leave my other friends early. So not only are you giving them kind of a history of evidence, but you're also giving them a little bit of a reason to connect to the evidence and to pity you. So there's a little bit more going on there. And then we've got the elaboration or the explanation in blue that says, knowing all of this. So there's our connection to the evidence. Keep this evidence in mind. Knowing all of this, I think I should have earned your trust at this point, and it's time that I show you that I can handle more responsibility. Extending my curfew by 1 hour will certainly give you the opportunity to see that I will continue to be responsible even on a longer leash. So again, you're adding a little bit of that connection to your audience. You're not just saying, here's why the evidence was important, but you're saying, here's why it connects to you and how it'll be good for me. And then finally, well, so you're leading into that connection part, which is the final part, the connection conclusion, which says, let me make you proud. If you give me the chance to prove myself, not only will I be grateful to you, but you will also know that I do not want to disappoint you. So again, kind of saying, I will be grateful, you won't be disappointed, we'll all be better because of this. And that's a really good way to conclude. You know, the reader or the listener in this case will say, oh yeah, that is a good idea. Like, I do want you to grow as a person, right? And this is the basic formula that you want to use for all paragraphs. You've got your claim, you've got your evidence, you've got your elaboration, and you've got your conclusion. Some of you may find it tricky to get to this advanced stage, but remember, you can start with just the basics and build from there. So in the future, I do expect that when I say write a paragraph, you are making sure that that paragraph has all 4 of these parts. Have a good evening and bring your notes tomorrow.